A report from federal investigators about the deadly plane crash last month near EAA AirVenture does not list a suspected cause. As we reported, Sean Tummervik and James Sullivan were killed when the small plane crashed into a soybean field just south of Oshkosh on July 22nd. The NTSB reviewed air traffic control recordings and learned the aircraft was in repeated contact with the tower, acknowledging commands to widen a left turn, and which runway had been cleared for its arrival. Fire destroyed the plane, but an examination showed control continuity of the wing flaps and rudder.